Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to Podcast 68 of 2021. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. Follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media /The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by MyBookie.ag. For a 100% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie. Use the promo code The Odds Breakers. Terms, conditions, and location apply. If you'd like to help us out with the cost and sponsor the website and podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. Pick any handicapper to get their premium plays before the line moves. You can also donate to us on Patreon to thank us for our free plays. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, if you're looking to learn about the sports betting business or just how to be a better sports bettor, please check out Sports Wagering U on Twitter at Sports Wagering U, a new system and school full of sharp sports bettors teaching the public how they bet, how they do it, and all of their secrets. You can learn about expected value. You can learn about the way the line moves. You can learn about how to read the lines and what to do about parlays. Make sure you check them out. Use the promo code ODDS21 for a 10% discount. Well, we have a great show for you today, my friends. I'm solo again because I am in Flagstaff now after driving about 500 miles through pure hell yesterday. But I was able to prepare for this podcast in the wee hours of the morning and the late hours at night. So I think I have a lot to bring to you for this show. It's going to be a little bit of a condensed show because we have no guests. Just wanted to go solo so I could be on my own schedule. But at the same time, that way I can just talk to you about my thoughts and my thoughts only. What I'm going to do today is some college football first, and then I'm going to get into some NFL, and we're going to talk a little bit about yards per point, a stat that I like to use that's a little bit different from some of the mainstream stuff like EPA, like yards per play, right? Yards per point is an important stat. I'm going to show you how it applies a little bit to college football and the NFL. Also, went through every single game in the NFL, ran through my algorithm. I'm going to give you the scores that the function kicked out so you can see how close it is or far away from the line itself. And I can kind of tell you a little bit about my thought process on every single game, obviously without giving out all my plays. Still have a few free plays for you in the NFL. Going to touch on the bigger games in college as well. So let's get started with a little college football week 6. Starting out with the Thursday games here, it looks like Coastal Carolina is playing Arkansas State. I mean, Coastal's a massive road favorite. I think that they're a little bit overrated here. The spread's 19.5. I personally think the spread should be around a 17-pointer. Arkansas State's definitely going to get up for this game and try to make some noise against the bigger name in their division in Coastal Carolina. Houston's now a massive favorite at Tulane, and laying 6.5 on the road is an interesting place to be after they blew out Tulsa. Tulane's a very desperate team right now themselves, but wow, Houston really has seemed to improve their defense over the past couple weeks. Probably going to stay away from this one as well. Now, the interesting game for Friday is, for me, Temple versus Cincinnati, because Cincinnati is in such a weird spot here. They obviously beat Notre Dame, the biggest victory in their school history, and then they have UCF on deck. Well, this spells letdown spot and sandwich spot in this situation here against Temple. The problem is Temple's not that good of a team, and East Carolina last year was in this similar spot. They beat Houston, and Houston was a decent team. Then they had East Carolina at home. They were about 30-point favorites, and I bet on East Carolina because they had UCF on deck, and they blew out East Carolina 55-17. So there you go. It's not always a perfect science here. But at the same time, East Carolina is a different team than Temple, and they play at a higher pace. So they kind of did that to themselves. I still might be a player on Temple. I just want to see how large this line could possibly get. Maybe you can get to a 30.5 or something. Stanford versus ASU. I mean, obviously, both programs had some huge wins. Stanford beating UCLA and Oregon. Arizona State at home with probably the best offense in the Pac-12. This spread's a little bit too large itself at 13.5. So I'm going to have to definitely lean Stanford in this situation. It could be a play for me. I think our yards per point stat kind of makes a little bit of sense for this game too. Stanford is number 19th in yards per point, which showing that they're pretty efficient. Now, when your defense scores, and they are a well-known defense for creating turnovers, they're going to help your yards per point out. What yards per point is how many yards it takes to get 1 point on the scoreboard. The less is better, right? It shows that you're not missing field goals. It shows that you are capitalizing on the red zone, right? And it also shows that your special teams might put you in pretty good position. It kind of takes everything together and puts it into one section. Now, you still have to look at strength of schedule, but looking at the top yards per point teams, you have Wyoming, which had the easy schedule. Then you have Iowa, very efficient. Houston, very efficient. Alabama, number 4. Georgia, number 5. Coastal Carolina, number 6. San Diego State, number 7. Texas, number 8. Michigan, number 9. As you can see, these are all well-deserving teams, and they're good teams. So, minus Wyoming, but in general, it tells you a little bit of a story that they have a very good defense and a very efficient offense. As far as the Stanford game, ASU is around 40th in yards per point. Just going to quick find them for sure. Actually, they're 49th, 13.7 yards per point, but they had the harder schedule. So remember that. All right, let's move to Saturday's slate now. Maryland's playing Ohio State here. Very large spread. Obviously, Maryland somewhat showed their colors from last year, at least. I wouldn't say true colors. I think they're better than what they were against Iowa. But this is a very large spread, and it's a large total at 71. My number is 15.5, really, on the dot here. Ohio State looked like they improved, and Maryland did not look good at all. But this is still really creeping up there for a team that should be able to score some points against an Ohio State secondary that just hasn't been showing up this year. So I'm going to give you a lean to Maryland. Looking at Michigan State versus Rutgers. Rutgers is a home dog at +6 here. So that creeped up a little bit because it was +5 earlier in the week. I kind of like Rutgers in this situation here. I think Michigan State is a very improved team, but they should not be laying over 3.5 points at Rutgers when Michigan State still has a lot to prove. They should not have won that Nebraska game. This one seems a little bit fishy to me. Oklahoma versus Texas, the Red River rivalry. This one's going to be huge. I believe College Game Day is going to be there. Texas still has that 3 in the hook. This thing definitely shot down. It was around 5 when it opened, 5 or 6, and money pushed it right down, and so did the market. Now, Oklahoma, people are still stuck on a very high rating with them, very high power rating. I adjusted probably more than most people, and that's why I was sitting at Oklahoma -2.5 in this situation. But that's past the 3, and I think the hook might have some value because I still think that there's some issues with the Oklahoma program behind the scenes. And I also think that Texas is a much better team with Sarkisian, much more electric on offense, and Bijan Robinson has been running all over the place. Really quick, also, if you look at overall efficiency in yards per point, it looks like Texas is at 10.8, ranking 8th in the nation, and 13.4 is where Oklahoma is. A little bit less efficient, and that shows with the way they played, not even covering spreads, yet barely winning some games against some very, very questionable teams. Going to stick with +3.5. Got the hook. Some other big games to touch on. West Virginia is only down to 2.5 now at Baylor on DraftKings. I think that's interesting. This was 3.5 before, so West Virginia money came in. Probably some sharper action to knock that number down. I do agree with it. Baylor's a little bit fraudulent from whom they played. Even though I like Baylor's season win total earlier this year, we're almost going to hit that. This is a game that they could definitely drop against a pissed off West Virginia team that just lost to Texas Tech. Arkansas versus Ole Miss. This spread is about 6 points here. This is close to my power rating here. I believe I have Ole Miss about 12.5 points better than the average team, and I have Arkansas about 10.5, so my number's 5. But at the same time, I'm going to lean Arkansas here because they can run the ball extremely efficiently. The Razorbacks actually rank 18th in EPA per rush, while Ole Miss ranks 90th in EPA per rush defending it. So there you go. That's the way Arkansas can win this game, is by keeping the time of possession and keeping the ball on the ground, tiring out Ole Miss's defense. This Georgia-Auburn line is a little bit weird. Auburn finally won a game at LSU, and they're only 15.5-point dogs to a team like Georgia the way they showed. Same time, Georgia probably pretty fat and happy with the way they've been playing right now. I very much lean taking Georgia here, laying the points at minus 15.5. This total being so low with such a large dog just tells me Auburn might not score at all. Maybe the team total on Auburn under is a decent play itself, because Georgia would probably be fine winning this dumb game 20-6 or something like that. All right, so a couple other games here. Virginia versus Louisville. For some reason, Malik Cunningham is on the injury report, so some Virginia money came in. I still think he plays. Florida State, North Carolina. North Carolina, massive favorite, minus 17.5. Revenge spot for North Carolina, but the spread is pretty huge for the Tar Heels. Boise State, BYU minus 5.5. I'm going to lean BYU in this situation here. Boise State's really been blowing some games, but the problem is that BYU is on their third string quarterback. Tough one to bet. Next, you have Wake Forest versus Syracuse. Wake's a strange road favorite of minus 5.5. They're probably begging people to take Wake here. I'm not going to do it necessarily. I think that Wake really did not show what their defense. I thought their defense was better last week, let's just try to say. And they didn't seem to show up well against a pretty, average Louisville team. So I'm going to stay away from that one as well. All right, here. Now I'm going to go over some of our free plays for you guys for college football week 6. Penn State versus Iowa. Iowa's about minus 1.5, minus 2. The total is 41.5. When this line went below the 3, I got to tell you, I was shocked. And I liked the 3, and I did take it. So I have some poor line value on this game. But at the same time, I have Iowa about a 3 or 4 point better team on a neutral field than Penn State, because I just have a little gap there. Iowa showed me a little bit more. And this is such an ugly total. It says that points are going to be at a premium. I understand people taking the dog with the total this low, but at the same time, 3.5 is fine when you have a 41-point total. So really had to dig a little bit deeper here. I mean, both these teams, great starts in the Big Ten, probably the best since, besides Michigan, for any Big Ten team. Obviously, Ohio State losing, Wisconsin looking terrible. But, I mean, strength of schedule is pretty equal. You look at that. The Penn State win against Wisconsin isn't aging that well, and they are outgained in yards. That's possibly part of the reason my power ratings came up with Iowa a better team. And you can argue that Iowa State is better than Auburn. Iowa State is killing it on the offensive side of the ball, but they just keep screwing up. So that's another somewhat comparable game. And Kent State and Colorado State are better teams than Villanova and Ball State that Penn State played. So that's kind of my strength of schedule breakdown when it comes to this game. Yards per play, Penn State definitely wins this one plus 1.89 net to plus 0.75 for Iowa. But I think that the strength of schedule talks a little bit about that as well. And the fact that Penn State, I mean, they beat Nova like by 70 points, right? I mean, a basketball school here. Looking at EPA margin, Iowa edges out Penn State by about 4 spots. So I'm not even going to call that a massive advantage here. But the biggest thing is Iowa's defense and the fact they're at home on an extra rest. They have an extra day to prepare for Penn State. And I also like the fact that Iowa has the cornerbacks that can go against some of Penn State's speed on the outside there. They have cornerbacks that can man up against Dotson and a few of their other skill positions there. So I think that Iowa can still stop the run while being able to man up with a good secondary against their skill positions. So we're going to take Iowa here for sure at -2, since we already liked them at -3 for around 2.5 stars. Next game we're going to talk about is Memphis versus Tulsa. Tulsa about 3.5 point favorite at home, total 62-ish. Here's a battle of underachievers from last week. Tulsa got destroyed at home versus Houston. Memphis dropped an ugly game at Temple. Looking at this game, both teams are a bit flawed. Memphis lost their quarterback, Grant Gunnell, due to injury early in the season. And, I mean, that stopped them right there. I mean, obviously losing Zaven Collins to the NFL didn't help either. And he's a starter with the Cardinals. You know, look how good the Cardinals defense has stepped it up lately. Tulsa losing Brady White, their quarterback from last year, obviously pointed out some things as well. This Tulsa team was quite fraudulent from last year, and they won a lot of close games within 6. I'm not interested in the side here, though, but the total sticks out to me. Tulsa was embarrassed on defense last week, and they should play a lot more solid. Tulsa can only move the ball with the run game, and that's where Memphis has been solid as well. They only allow 3.56 yards per rush. I see a ton of 3-and-outs around the midfield. And finally, most importantly, there's going to be some wind this game. Some wind in Oklahoma. It was looking like 15 miles per hour, possibly gusts even more. We're going to take the under 62 points for 2 stars. The last game we're going to give out here is LSU versus Kentucky. Kentucky laying -3.5 at home. Totals about 50.5. This is a spot play for me. And I don't think the right team is necessarily favored. Kentucky can stop the run. And they did a great job last week beating rival Florida. But Florida was massively outgained the Wildcats, right? I mean, by over 100 some yards. And it was more about them blowing the game more than Kentucky winning it. Kentucky hasn't played really anyone with a pulse besides Florida. And, you know, I don't know if LSU is going to sit there and lay down after they lost at home against Auburn. LSU at least beat Mississippi State on the road, and they had to, weather the storm against a tougher UCLA team. Max Johnson, very solid QB so far for the Tigers. Nice 16-4 TD to interception ratio. Besides strength of schedule, the other thing is the letdown situation and the look ahead situation. Kentucky with a huge Gator win, and then now they have Georgia on deck. Total potential flat spot here. Going to go with the Tigers with the hook, and I think that they could win this game outright for 2.5 stars.
Fucked up maybe, but I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you. I make you laugh. I'm here to fucking amuse you. What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
All right, let's get into a little NFL Week 5 lines and plays here. So, as promised, we're going to talk a little bit about yards per point in the NFL and go over our function and our efficiency function to spit out some scores for some of these games and obviously give you the free plays. So when you look at yards per point, it's the usual suspects again, right? You got the Saints number 1 at 11.8 yards per point. And, you know, they've been good on offense, especially against the Packers, and that throws off their stats a little bit. But then you have Buffalo at number 2, Arizona at number 3, Kansas City at number 4, Tampa Bay number 5, Dallas number 6, Green Bay number 7. I mean, that's why I like this stat so much, because it tells you the story. It validates the teams that are really good. and very efficient at football. A lot of times coaches that are very good coaches are high when it comes to yards per point. I also look at opponent yards per point because it shows you how efficient their red zone defense is. Now if their offense is turning the ball over a ton and they're scoring a lot of points on the other side, that hurts this number. But you kind of have to factor that in. Like a Jameis Winston, Tampa Bay type offense, you might not want to punish the defense so much in this. But Denver, number 1, no surprise there. 21.9 allowed yards per point. Saints at number 2. Buffalo at number 3. The Chargers at number 4. Seattle at number 5. And New England at number 6. And believe it or not, Cincinnati sitting there at number 7. So defensive yards per point is a good stat as well when it comes to trying to figure out which teams are the most efficient. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about each game. For Seattle, hosting the Rams, my efficiency algorithm spit out 28-28, basically a tie. The spread is the Rams minus 2.5 here. Now, Seattle always plays the Rams tough, and they always seem to win at home, whether it's Zerline missing that field goal a year or two ago or the turnovers. It's just always a close game. My total obviously says 56 and a tie. This total's 54, a little bit too close to my number to take any look into that one. Next game, the Jets versus the Falcons, and this game is in London. I actually have the Jets winning 19-18.5, and the Falcons here are minus 3 on a neutral side. Another issue here, I am not taking the Jets necessarily because they just won their first freaking game, and they are massive issues with turning the ball over. Philadelphia versus Carolina. Carolina is 25-20 here. Now, the thing, I think there's more upside personally with Carolina. So I'm going to lean Carolina in this situation. I'm actually closer to 26-20 here, Carolina. So Philadelphia issues with Jalen Hurts. He's a great runner of the football, but he still doesn't, I don't think, have a full grasp of that Eagles offense. And the Eagles just not playing that great D, and they have a lot of injury problems. So we're going to stick with the lean to Carolina. The Saints versus Washington. Spread on this game is -1 for the Saints. It throws me off a little bit. I think it's a little bit low here, but Washington's at home. My number is Saints by 3.5, 25.5 to 22, while the Saints total is about 44. So what's that? 47 to 44, pretty close there. Definite lean to the over in this situation, as long as it's all about the Saints D here. Tennessee versus Jacksonville. I think Tennessee is about a 4-point favorite. I have Tennessee winning only 27 to 24.5. No way I can go against Jacksonville in a desperation spot like this, trying to get their first win. Home dog at +4 though. So if the Titans receivers are still out, then maybe this would be a play for me. Detroit at Minnesota. Minnesota laying about 7.5 points. The total is 49.5. Actually, I see the Vikings at 8.5 now. That's so close to my number. I have the Vikings winning 30 to 21. So we're at 49. Very close to the spread on that algorithm calculation here. Denver versus Pittsburgh. I actually have Denver winning 19.5 to 15. But Denver has massive cluster injuries on their wide receivers. And now Teddy Bridgewater might not play. That's a serious downgrade in this situation. I think Big Ben is going to play, although he's still banged up on the injury report. But Pittsburgh is actually finally getting healthier. So that's the situation there. Miami versus Tampa. It's around 10 points. My number's 30 to 19, literally right at the spread here. You wonder if Tampa can finally score some points. Green Bay versus Cincy. This is interesting. Green Bay's the road favorite. This is one of the ones my algorithm's mostly off on. Green Bay, I have 18 points, and Cincinnati 24.5 points because Cincinnati has been surprisingly efficient this year. but I am not going to go against Aaron Rodgers necessarily. I mean, the reason I think the Saints game really threw off their stats, and that's why it's showing Cincinnati that big of a favorite here. And I missed the hook here, but I do like a total in this game. And, lots of people look at these teams and they say bad defense with both of them. Now, Cincy ranks a lot higher than perception, like I said. Number 7 in opponent EPA per game and one of the top defensive efficient yards per point teams in the NFL. Green Bay ranks only 22nd when counting that bad game. Now, since that loss, Green Bay's only allowed 17 points twice. And at 28 to San Francisco, if you won that game, that was mainly garbage yards, pass interference calls, and things like that. Neither team really killing it in offensive EPA. Green Bay ranking 16th and Cincinnati ranking 22nd in EPA per play. So Cincinnati also ranks 5th in DVOA on defense. That's important here. In defensive yards per play, Green Bay ranks 8th. I see both teams kind of stopping each other here. I see a lot of field goals. We'll take under 50.5 points for a couple stars. Next one, we have New England at Houston. This is not a 10-point spread for me. This is a 5-point spread, but Jesus, with Davis Mills there, all those stats from when they beat Jacksonville are kind of gone. I am not rushing to the window to bet on the Houston Texans after New England had that close loss against Tampa. It was a night game, but you can't really categorize that as a shorter week. This could be a kind of big get-up spot for New England. Chicago versus Las Vegas. This is the next game that we have a play on. I have Vegas winning this game, 26.5 to 16.5 points. As you know, I'm a Bears fan. I know a little bit about their team, but it doesn't take a freaking rocket scientist to see how awful this team is on offense. The funny thing is the narrative of this game before the season even started was that the Bears are going to have more people and it'll be more of a home game for them. But what people forget to take away is the travel. They still have to travel there. They have to take away the officiating for the home team, and they have to take away the lack of similarity to their real stadium. That's all baked into the 3-point home field advantage here. So I don't understand why this is not a clean touchdown here. The Bears are absolutely terrible on offense, and even worse when it comes to road games. They only average 184 yards per game away from Chicago. The Bears are also dead last in yards per play away from home, 3.3 yards per play. That's hard to accomplish, and it's not like the Raiders are that bad this year. They're actually a very good team this year. You would think that the Bears could keep themselves in the game through their defense, but the Raiders actually have the better defense. They rank 8th in quarterback pressure rate. Well, the Bears rank 22nd in pressure rate. That's not the Bears we remember. Plus, the Bears secondary is much more inferior to those Raiders wide receivers, like Henry Ruggs and his speed. Edwards, right? That Waller. They're going to get torched. I mean, what I'm looking at here, the Raiders have the better defense and a lot better offense here, especially on paper. My power ratings have the Raiders win by 7. If you only give them 2 points for home field advantage, my algorithm has it at 10. Take the Raiders by margin for 2 stars. Next one, Cleveland versus the Chargers. 21-21 is what I have this score, so I'm a little bit under the total, so I'll lean to the under there. People don't understand that Cleveland's defense has been fantastic, and that's why Minnesota could only score 7 points at home. But Cleveland's more of a run-at-first team now, too. Can the Chargers stop that? I think they can, and I think they've done this game down a little bit. Not sure if I'm going to be interested in a side here. Giants versus Dallas. This is another one close to spread. I have Dallas winning 31.5 to 23. So you're looking at about an 8.5 point margin. I think the spread's at a 7. So definitely no play for me on that one. San Fran versus Arizona. This is another huge one here. Arizona winning 33.5 to 22. I should be laying the points with Arizona, and I'm not saying that I won't do that. I'm kind of watching this spread. But the problem is, from a matchup standpoint, Arizona's rush defense still looked really bad against the Vikings. And if San Francisco, that's their core competency. They're a pissed off team coming in Arizona. They could run the ball down their throat. So that's why money came in on San Francisco. Buffalo, Kansas City. Believe it or not, Buffalo is the most efficient team from a total standpoint, and they have the best yards and yards per play, pretty much the best numbers across the board. Now, Kansas City, their numbers look pretty well, but my number on this game is about 30 to 25 Buffalo, and Buffalo's a 2.5 point dog. Just from a number standpoint of Buffalo winning this game, but you know that Kansas City is capable of a lot more. Buffalo blew this game last year at Kansas City bad. Kansas City smoked them. So you wonder where the motivation lies. Big lean to Buffalo for me in this spot. And the Colts versus Baltimore. I have Baltimore winning 27-20, literally right at the number. All right, my friends, now it is time for our refuse to lose teaser. That's only 2-2. I believe we are 5-2 in total teasers this year. I'll have to double check that. But we're going to go with the Seattle Seahawks, the Thursday game, all the way to plus 8.5 with the Vikings down to minus 1.5. Now, if you miss this game and obviously can't take the Seattle part of this teaser, I still like taking the Vikings down to minus 1.5, and I would probably take the Cowboys instead down to -1. So just wanted to quick throw that out there. But if you get this podcast early, make sure you play the refuse to lose teaser when you have Seattle plus 8.5 and Minnesota down to -1.5 for 2 stars.
Have you found Jesus yet, Doc?
I didn't know I was supposed to be looking for him, sir.
And my friends, now it is time for
The Sharp Side of the Force.
The Sharp Side of the Force is brought to you by uwager.eu. For a 100% sign-up bonus, please visit uwager and use the promo code theoddsbreakers. Terms, conditions, and location apply. All right, we have some sharp money in college on sides here. Sharp money on Florida, -37 to -39, hosting Vanderbilt. 67% of the tickets and 96% of the money. Sharp money on West Virginia. Move that line, like I said before, down to 2.5. 49% of the tickets now on West Virginia. 64% of the money. Possibly some buyback also coming back on the Baylor side. Dual action on Georgia Tech, -2.5 to -3.5 at Duke. 89% of the tickets and 98% of the money. Looks like UAB has some dual action hosting Florida Atlantic at -3.5. 80% of the tickets and 99% of the money. Sharp money on Wisconsin from -9.5 to -10.5. 65% of the tickets on Wisconsin, 94% of the money. Oh, the Bielema game. That one's going to be nasty. Sharp money on Miami, Ohio at -1.5. 67% of the money on Miami, 67% of the tickets, 95% of the money. That is one I definitely disagree with here. Sharp money on BYU. Moving this thing up a little bit, now up to 6. 87% of the tickets on BYU, 97% of the money. I guess they don't care about the quarterback. Sharp money on Central Florida, actually. 30% of the tickets at -10 on Central Florida. 74% of the money. Now, this one, Central Florida lost Gabriel, their quarterback, but a lot of times that team gets the kind of the motivation the very next game to play very well with their backup. So that's what that must be. Going to do a few sharp totals here. It looks like South Carolina versus Tennessee under 57 points. 47% of the tickets on the under, 93% of the money. Tennessee's a big running team these days. Sharp money on Oklahoma versus Texas under 63.5. 35% of the tickets on the under, 85% of the money. Oklahoma's been playing some really good defense, at least, so I see that one for sure. Sharp money on the under, Maryland versus Ohio State, now at 71.5. Looks like the under got hit a few times. 65% of the tickets on the under, 99% of the money now. So there you go for that one. Sharp money on Georgia Tech versus Duke, under 61, 41% of the tickets on the under, 88% of the money on the under. Here's an interesting one. Virginia versus Louisville, under 69.5. This thing crept up from 65.5. 69% of the tickets on the under, 83% of the money. This looks like one of those setups, bring it up a little bit and then pound the under. I'm not sure if Malik Cunningham's going to play, and Virginia's been pretty bad and inefficient on offense themselves. Let's move into some sharp NFL. We're looking at the Cowboys. They moved up from -5.5 to -7. 78% of the tickets on the Cowboys, 87% of the money. Raiders, -5.5. 72% of the tickets on the Raiders, 95% of the money. So it looks like the Raiders was more of a sharp side here since that number moved down. Sharp money on the Cardinals. I mean, this is at the -5.5 as well. We discussed that one. 62% of the tickets on the Cardinals and 80% of the money on the Cardinals, -5 as well. Sharp NFL totals here. It looks like the Dolphins versus Bucks, under 48.5. 45% of the tickets on the under, 72% of the money. Sharp money on the Lions versus Vikings, under 49.5. 40% of the tickets on the under, 99% of the money. Sharp money on the Broncos versus Steelers, over 39.5. That's just a low number. 47% of the tickets on the over, 99% of the money. And sharp money on the Packers versus Bengals, under 51. 35% of the tickets on the under, 89% of the money. As you know, I agree with that one. We gave out that total. My friends, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Sorry it was so short. As you know, this vacation thing is hard to navigate, but I hope you have the best of luck this weekend. Next week, we will be back to our normal schedule. Please feel free to tweet us at the Oddsbreakers if you have any questions. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the games and go get some winners.